Hello, I'm Paul Larson. Writer Kristin Kimball left her life and career in Manhattan to move to a 500-acre farm in the small community of Essex, New York. In this author visit, she speaks with Thom Hallock about how the move changed her life and how her life reflects the changing face of agriculture.
You've really undergone a transformation in your life over the past few years. I guess that's an understatement.
That's an understatement.
Tell us your story, how you got from living a life in New York City to running this farm in Essex, New York.
Well, I was living in New York working as a writer and looking around for interesting stories. And this was about 10 years ago now, and Eric Schlosser's book had just come out, Fast Food Nation, and I read it and I thought, this is absolutely fascinating. He, in the book, as you know, talked about what our food system is looking like and showed some of the ugly corners of it. And I thought, this is really interesting. I wonder what it looks like from the perspective of people who are really doing it right. And so I started exploring the food shed of the Hudson Valley, which was the closest sort of farmland where I was living. And I found that there were all these very interesting young farmers who had graduated with fancy degrees from good colleges and could have done anything with their lives and had decided to go into farming. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting story. So I started interviewing more and more of them, and eventually found my way to central Pennsylvania, where there was this charming young farmer named Mark who was growing vegetables for 150 people on a little piece of land near State College. And his farm seemed to have a lot of the elements that I wanted to write about. And I sort of decided that that might be the story that I wanted to write. I asked him if I could possibly spend some time on his farm, and he said yes. And pretty soon after that, I fell madly in love, I think first with farming and then with Mark, the farmer.
After that. When did you decide this is the man that I love and I want to build a life with him?
Very shortly after I met him, there was no denying that this shift that was happening in my life was more than interest in a subject. It was something that I wanted to take on as my life and my lifestyle. So.
And at the time, Mark was working on this farm near State College in Pennsylvania, but his dream was to have his own farm. And so when you became a couple, that was the goal, was to find this farm, and you set out searching for a farm where you could have your life together.
We met an extremely generous landowner who let us start farming on a piece of ground, 500-acre piece of ground, for free. So we got a year's free lease on this farm.
That was remarkable.
It was remarkable. And it was tough. It was a tough first year. Everything on the farm was falling apart. We decided I should back up a little bit and explain that instead of just growing vegetables, which is what Mark was doing in Pennsylvania, we decided that we wanted to start a community-supported agriculture program, which is a membership farm, basically, that would feed our members a full diet year-round. So instead of just doing vegetables, we were looking to start a farm that did beef, pork, chicken, eggs, fruit, about 50 different kinds of vegetables, maple syrup.
Really, the whole diet.
The whole diet.
And that's different. I mean, many CSAs mostly offer vegetables and maybe some meat. And so that was kind of a different model.
Yeah, as far as we know, we were the first ones to try this full diet model. And there are a few other brave farmers who are trying to do the same thing now, but it's still pretty unusual.
The first year was hard, and that's what the book is about, really. The Dirty Life is about your first year on the farm there. And just what sort of obstacles did you run into? How challenging was it?
Well, just, aside from the fact that we were starting all these different projects and trying to provide a full diet for people, we were also doing it with draft horses instead of tractors.
Partly by choice?
Oh, absolutely by choice, yeah. For me, it's because I just really, really love horses. There's a lot of ecological reasons also to choose horses over tractors. But most of our choices are made because they're more fun, and the horses are no exception. But I didn't have any teamster skills. I did have horse skills because I grew up riding horses, but I didn't have any teamster skills, and Mark had never worked horses before, ever. So that first year, we were also trying to learn how to make the farm work with horsepower instead of tractors.
You mentioned growing up. You grew up in Rome, New York.
Rome, New York, yep.
Griffiths Air Force Base. Your dad was with the Air Force. You never even had a garden as a kid growing up.
That's true.
And now here you were taking on farming and all aspects of farming, including learning how to milk
That is
by
true.
hand.
Yes.
That was one of the many challenges of that first year.
That's true. We've recently switched to machines now that we're milking 10 cows now instead of one or two. So we just recently switched to machines, but until this year, we did it all by hand.
Well, anyone that has milked a cow by hand can certainly understand why, when you have 10, that you switch to machines.
Yes, the forearms can't take it.
So tell us how the CSA works for members.
Our members join for the year, so they sign up in the winter, and they come every week to the farm to get their week's worth of groceries. It's free choice, so they take whatever they want for the week, just as though they were in a grocery store. Really? And there's no checkout line.
That's a good part. And as much as they want?
As much as they want, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. We have our own butcher shop, we have our own dairy, and we grow all of our own vegetables, so we have pretty much everything covered.
This is sort of a throwback to a model of generations ago when really farms and communities were self-sufficient.
It is. It's sort of like the old style family farm, only we're growing for a very, very big family.
When did you just decide to write a book about your experiences?
Well, I had in mind to write a book originally
About Mark when
I went to interview him.
This sort of became that.
And then we got so busy for the first 3 years on our farm that I had to kind of tuck that idea away. And then when things got a little bit more sane, I started writing again and came up with this book instead of the one that I originally planned. This one's a little more personal.
Now, you had a book signing in Manhattan, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
I did.
What was that like and what was the reaction of urbanites to this story?
There's so many people in the city right now. I call them the agri-curious. People in cities who really want to be more connected to their food. You see it in what's happening in restaurants, and just the level of interest in farms in cities is really incredible right now.
So many people have been moved by the book. It's not only a story about developing a love of farming, but it's a love story, and a lot of people can relate to that, and they really like that. What else do you think people will get out of the book reading it?
I hope people will get to see what it's like to change your life completely. I think there are a lot of dissatisfied people working in jobs that aren't appealing to them anymore, and I hope that people see the possibility of changing your life completely and starting a completely new track, even if you're not 21. I was, I think, 32 when I met Mark, so. Yeah.
Again, being in your early 30s, did your family absolutely think you were crazy to have this big of a change at that point in your life?
Definitely. Yeah, they still talk about it. I think they thought, I used to be a travel writer, so I think they thought that I was just on a different kind of a trip for a while, and that I would eventually go back home to the city. And I think they thought that up until the day that we actually got married.
Author Visits is a production of Mountain Lake PBS. For more information about the authors and their books, head to our website, mountainlake.org.